Admiral William O. Studeman was twice acting director of the Central Intelligence Agency under both Democrats and Republicans under the first Bush and the Clinton administrations. He also served as Deputy Director of Intelligence under the Bush and Clinton administrations. That's the number 2 position in CIA. Further, in his long and distinguished career, Admiral Studeman was Director of Navy Intelligence. He also served as Director of the National Security Agency, and currently is a member of the Defense Policy Board and advisor to the Defense Intelligence Agency. So Admiral Studeman has held some of the most senior positions in the intelligence community, and in effect has been the top intelligence officer in the U.S. intelligence community on a bipartisan basis under 2 presidents.
I am fundamentally an intel officer with most of my life spent with the defense focus, and I've served in this field of intel and defense for almost 50 years. I'm also an amateur observer of strategic issues and sociologies at work attempting to grapple with really seminal strategic issues. In today's information age, beyond the concerns about all the things that are the sucking sound from Washington today, the economy, healthcare, energy, environment, the illegal mass migration, I sort of notice that there are really 3 strategic and highly related national security threats, one of which EMP is a subset of. And those 3 issues are the 21st century nuclear threat in a proliferation context, cyber, and the threat to space systems. They are all strategic. They all demand a strategic response. Strategic responses should be first priorities for the country. And somehow or another, in the context of some of the actions that we've been undertaking in and around Washington, we seem to have forgotten it. These threats absolutely threaten our information dominance, and they can be strategically devastating to our infrastructures and society as we know it. This then leaves an apocryphal burden for the federal, state, local, tribal, first responders, and disaster relief people to try to pick up the pieces should we fail to defend. Accordingly, as the EMP Commission concluded, we must take the appropriate steps to harden ourselves in the areas where we are the most threatened. The EMP threat is, in my view, simultaneously a nuclear threat and a cyber hard kill threat. And as such, it's a crossover threat, a transcendent priority, and creates vulnerabilities that have to be addressed. There seems to be some general agreement that with appropriate technical actions, including the testing and the training, that worst-case EMP effects can be somewhat, if not substantially, mitigated. In the assessment process, we need to get clarity on EMP threat field strengths and the effects that they create in systems. It takes focused leadership, some resources, but most of all, coordinated actions across the Congress, the industries that are involved here, and in particular, I think, getting first-tier industries involved, incentivized and resourced, and especially the executive branch departments to achieve real and substantial actions on mitigating and hardening. In pondering where I could add value to this conference, I thought it would be useful to consider a framework for pursuing future actions as it relate to broad recommendations of the EMP Commission, particularly those dealing with the major points, which involve having a strategy and a policy going forward, doing the kinds of assessments required to better understand the threat, and there is more need to understand it, achieving the hardening itself, dealing with repair and recovery, and then fundamentally engineering resilience into the current and future potential EMP victims in the areas that related to power and net centricity and microelectronics and control. Many steps I will mention have already been laid out, but I do not believe that they are delivering results. I believe that we have achieved sort of the first view of enemies, as we have met the enemy and he appears to be us and he appears to be winning. The Congress and the Commission have defined the blueprint, but it takes an executive branch effort across a whole set of multifaceted actions to drive the mitigating actions. And we need to be able to create the defenses and the critical infrastructure protections that where one gets a sense that the executive branch leadership is actually at work. Today, I get a sense that the executive branch, as has already been characterized, is still missing in action or attempting to decide what they want to do for the future. There's also a sort of a continuing naivete and serendipity in the EMP awareness across the country, across the government, and across our society. So from my point of view and from years in the government, there are a whole series of things that need to be done, and I would like to assert some following steps. Your conference can assess how well these steps are being pursued. At the federal level, the Department of Homeland Security must lead. And I was asking some of the reps here around before the conference said, is there a definable office inside the Department of Homeland Security who is responsible for the EMP problem? Not responsible for critical infrastructure problems, not responsible for recovery and response problems, specifically responsible and identifiable as the office to deal with this EMP threat. We need, one, greater widespread recognition and consensus that this is a truly strategic issue and it must be worked as a first principles threat and a response issue. We need continued data collection and analysis and to need to do the assessments using the best people and elite teams. And in particular, the intel community needs to be able to collect and analyze more in this area so that they can clarify some of the positions and the differences that they are currently standing on with regard to the Commission and others. We need to identify specific threat details and become threat-driven, using strong net assessment tools, and we need to broader socialize and nag at this problem, and this conference, in my view, is a prime nagging forum for this. At specific points and in particular involving the most threatened constituencies. We need to deploy executive branch leadership approach, again, defining an office that is responsible, the framework that will purposely and passionately drive this multifaceted problem to some form of conclusion. We need to develop adaptable and appropriate strategies with defined vectors and adjust over time as necessary. We need to develop a foreign policy and general policy community to deal with this. One of the big issues with regard to this problem is that there is no real developed policy community that deals with the deterrence aspects or even the engagement aspects that might be required in terms of the foreign context. We need to organize from the Hill to the executive and in industry the resources for success, including the information, the awareness, and also the training and other aspects. We need to relentlessly work across the complex sociologies toward specific objectives in the EMP area and build a constituency for action-oriented actors and programs. Most of all, I think we need strong governance. We need to track progress. We need to have defined programs, defined program reviews, reporting progress, and strong oversight from the Hill and the executive, including use of metrics. In the search for organizing principles, the EMP threat also needs to, in my view, be considered part of the cyber problem portfolio. This administration has just completed in late May, a major cybersecurity policy review, but it has yet to take action to appoint a national level, NSC level cyber coordinator. And in the face of all these other issues, it has not been able to move forward on any of the strategies related to cyber in the offense, defense, or exploit area. The Department of Defense did stand up a sub-unified cyber COCOM under the Strategic Command. They stand up on 1 October. They have attack, defend, and exploit. But it's not clear that in the panoply of topics that relate to cyber, nuclear-related hard kill of this class, EMP weapons, information operations, command and control, security, communications, countermeasures, et cetera, that portfolio will be filled out very quickly. So we do have some warfighting element of this that is beginning to be defined. Again, as a transcendent issue, EMP threat, it touches virtually every department of the government. DHS has the lead, but a lot of the expertise remains in the Department of Defense, some in the intel community, the Department of Energy, State needs to get involved, commerce, and clearly others. And so herein lies the difficulty of the EMP pursuit, which is coalescing all these departments and agencies who have a game, have a pony in the game from the federal level, much less addressing those that exist at the state and local and lower levels. So I certainly hope that this conference can get the focus back on EMP as a critical security issue. I think this conference can totally re-energize and focus this particular area, and so that we can deploy fixes that we need to harden and modernize our critical infrastructures and to sustain our information age dominance. So thanks for the time to be with you, and I wish you all the best in the future of this conference. Thank you.